I'd like to welcome you to Connecting the Dots, Infant and Toddler Connection and Families Working Together. I'm Kathleen Gibson, the Early Childhood Specialist here at PTSI, and I have with me Kyla Patterson. I'll let her introduce herself in just a moment. Today, we're going to be talking about the SIP work groups, and Kyla's going to explain what that is and how you can be involved as a family member. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Kyla.
All right, well, thank you and welcome. And I'm Kyla Patterson. I am the Early Intervention Program Manager for the Infant and Toddler Connection of Virginia. So I work at the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, which is the lead agency for Part C Early Intervention Services in Virginia. And I'm glad to have this opportunity. I'm going to share my screen here. Let me find the right thing to share. And just share a little bit of information, like Kathleen said, about our state systemic improvement plan. We call it the SIP for short, and some opportunities for families, for parents to sort of participate in some work groups and some recommendations and decision making that we're doing around this focus area of improving positive social emotional skills, including social relationships for children who are participating in early intervention. All states have to have an SIP. It's a 6-year plan, and each state decides what area of outcomes they're going to focus on for that 6-year period. We worked with a lot of parents and early intervention providers and administrators a couple of years ago now to figure out what we wanted to focus on as we moved into a new 6-year cycle. And this was the area that kept rising to the top as being a high priority for families and for professionals based on what they were seeing with children and families that they were supporting through early intervention. So once we identified the focus area, we continued to work with parents and providers to think about what would be some of the activities we needed to implement in order to make the improvement that we're trying to make. And we're now forming work groups around some of those particular topic areas. One of them is thinking about the screening or kind of quick look and assessments, which is a longer look, a more in-depth look at children's social emotional development. So what are the tools that would help us to make sure that as we're having children come into our early intervention system and throughout their time in early intervention, that we're paying attention to social emotional development. Another work group is going to be looking at tools and processes for maybe looking at related factors like attachment or children's temperament or other things that might be going on that impact a child's social emotional development. Is there a parent dealing with depression, for instance? This is not something we've done a lot of in early intervention. They do it in some other early childhood programs. And there's some research that suggests that it might be important to look at if we really want to make an improvement and make sure that the children that we're serving are leaving early intervention with the strongest possible social emotional skills and social relationships. We know that's so important as you continue to move into school and on through your life. A third work group that we're forming is around thinking about how Virginia might implement the pyramid model in early intervention. And the pyramid model is really a framework for supporting children's social emotional development. Thinking about that, if you picture, a triangle, that bottom bigger part of the triangle is what you do for all children and families that you serve to support all children's, positive social emotional skills. And then in the middle tier, it's some more targeted supports for children where you may have some concerns about social or emotional skills. And then at the top of the pyramid, maybe actual, infant mental health services, because there may be a diagnosis of a social, emotional, or mental health kind of concern for that infant or toddler. So there are a lot of national resources to support states in using this evidence-based framework for supporting children and families. We have not formally sort of implemented that model in early intervention in Virginia, but it's something we'd like to look into. So there's going to be a work group that will learn more about the pyramid model, think about how it might work in Virginia, and the kinds of training and supports we would need to provide so that our providers are following that model. And then the fourth work group that we're looking to pull together is one on reflective supervision, which is really a practice that supports providers to support families in early intervention. It's a model that's, again, used in many states and used in some other programs, some other early childhood programs in Virginia, but not formally in early intervention. So we'd like to look at whether that's going to be helpful too in making sure that the providers who are seeing children and families in early intervention have the support and resources that they need to effectively support social emotional development. So those are kind of the four work groups that we're going to be doing a lot of the work around our SIP this year, at least the first half of this year. And it's something where we would really like to have more parent voices. We really try that when we're having a work group or a committee or making decisions in early intervention at the state level, that parents are at the table. Your voices are critical to make sure we're making the right kinds of decisions that provide supports and services that are helpful to your children and your families. So we really don't want to do this work without you being involved. And so we wanted to have this opportunity just to share kind of what work groups are happening, why they're happening, and just offer this opportunity that we would love to have your participation. If it's something that you're interested in, my name and email are here on the screen. If you're interested in one of those work groups, I would invite you to email me and let me know. And also wanted to let you know that both Kathleen and I are committed to supporting families to participate in work groups. It can be intimidating for anybody to join a group of people they don't know. I am an introvert myself. I am always intimidated to join a new group, especially if I don't know anybody and I'm not sure exactly what's expected of me or how it's going to work. So we really want you to have all the information and support you need to be engaged in these kind of work groups. So either of us would be happy to provide, one-on-one information and preparation ahead of you participating and be a contact for you during your participation in a group. And then I think the other thing we wanted to offer today was just an opportunity for you to ask us any questions that you might have about potentially participating in a state level work group like this.
Well, I did have a couple of people who emailed me who weren't able to make it to today's live webinar, and they did have questions for me. Not me, you, but
us. Yes.
And one of the questions that I often get asked on anything that's related as we're supporting parents and elevating parent voice is the time commitment. And yet how often those work groups typically meet and if there's homework.
Okay, yeah, great question. And it can vary a little bit. Generally speaking, our work groups meet once a month for maybe an hour, sometimes two, if there's really a lot, sort of going on and in that particular group at the moment. Generally, there's not a lot of homework. Sometimes we might say, listen, if you've got some other friends who are parents in early intervention or sort of just past that age, and you would ask them what they think about this particular issue and maybe bring back that feedback along with your own, we might ask you to do something like that. But no, there's not a lot of work in between the meetings.
Okay. And then there was one other question that I had, excuse me, from someone was if they were interested in one or two work groups, could they join more than one? So they were particularly interested in, sorry, I'm looking at my notes. They were interested in the pyramid model and the screening and assessment for social emotional development. And I told them that was a great question. I don't know the answer, but I'll find out from Kyla.
Yes, we would be happy to if they would like to participate in more than one, we would be happy to have them do that.
Okay. And there's no qualifications other than being a parent of a little one who has currently or has recently received early intervention. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you, Kyla, taking time to kind of talk about this. We'll continue to support this work. As Kyla said, you know, we're here to support parents and to elevate that parent voice and really have how this system is impacting our lives and those of others. So, Kyla, I really appreciate you doing this. And I will publish it momentarily. One thing I do want to mention to Kyla, and to those of you who are listening, is Early Childhood Academy is starting on February 17th. And so we're really excited about that. That's a self-paced online training for families of young children with delays and disabilities and the early childhood professionals who serve them. So we're looking at from birth to approximately 6 years old. And for more information and to register, you can locate that information on our website at pt.org. Kyla, thank you again for connecting the dots with us on how more parents can be involved in changing the systems that matter to us in Virginia. So thank you.
And thank you as well.